Yeah, I think a top 10 list. I think when you do a top 10 list next year, it's going to be complicated.
And
Great.
also, I think when you look at also with the potential of moves in the offseason, it's also going to shift top 10 lists too, because this, to me, EJ, I'm going to say it now on May 31st, as we're recording this podcast, I think this will be the summer of the most traded superstars or all-stars we've seen in league history.
Wow, a lot of trades this
I
offseason.
think I think this offseason is going to be, because the new CBA is going to throw monkey wrenches in everything. We're watching what goes on with Boston in the Jaylen Brown situation. Do you really believe in EJ in your heart of hearts? Now, we just finished watching the series. We
Yeah.
watched the Boston Celtics for the last 5-6 years with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown together. Are those two worth $600 million or over $100 million a season against your salary cap? Because to pay both of them and keep them happy, you got to max both of them out.
Are they worth it on just no, they're not. However, they don't have a choice. They got to pay him.
But what happens is, if you pay him, guess what happens? There's no
can't.
Derek Whites. There's no Robert Williams. There's no Malcolm Brogdons. There's no Al Horford type players. You can't have those, because guess what?
Yeah.
You're now filling your roster with G League guys, and you better hope that your farm system is the Miami Heat or the Toronto Raptors, because if it's not, then you're talking about a team that's going to win 45 games every year, probably getting their head kicked in the first and second round, because most of your money is spent between those two guys.
It's funny because I feel like this CBA thing triggered a lot of stuff that's happened this week. I think the Bob Myers thing, him leaving Golden State, has something to do with that as well too. I think he's getting ahead of. I think him leaving, he's talking about his family and all this stuff, and it could be true also. But I think he sees the potential chaos of Golden State about to come in another year or so, with having to figure out Draymond Green's contract this summer, had to figure out Klay Thompson's contract next year, had to figure out Steve Kerr's possible extension or not, get another year's contract. I think he's getting ahead of the chaos that's about to happen in Golden State. I think the CBA is throwing a lot of monkey wrenches, like you said, a lot of other things. You just mentioned though about names being traded this offseason. Give me 3 names out the shoot you see getting traded. 3 names out the shoot.
Karl-Anthony Towns.
No surprise there. Jaylen Brown.
Mm-hmm. Trae Young.
Wow. Not surprised at all. Either 3. So let's do Jaylen first then. Does Boston offer him the Supermax?
See, so there becomes the $64 question, right? Because if you offer him the Supermax, you can't trade him for 1 year. You're stuck with it for a year. So because the new CBA rules is players under Supermax contracts, especially the 5-year ones, can't be traded for a full 365 days. Mm-hmm. So he can't be touched for the full season, the first full season after he signs that Supermax deal. So here's where the money problem comes into play. Mm-hmm. It's 5 years, 294, 295 million if he stays in Boston. If he takes the 4-year deal, it's 4 years at 224 million.
Right.
All right.
Plus he's getting 30 million currently for next year.
Mm-hmm. But remember, here's the other part. If another team wants to sign him, it's 4 years at 184 million. So his best case is you guys stay in Boston because you lose a $100 million by going someplace else. So you must really want to get out of Boston to be able to turn down $100 million, because that's what the CBA was doing.
But that's what I'm saying, though, because here's the thing with the tea leaves. I've been discussing on the podcast now for a couple of weeks now about this. Like, the tea leaves show you that Jaylen Brown does not want to stay in Boston. Mm-hmm. I mean, between the city, between the way he was treated, with the Kevin Durant stuff last summer, which all viable things. He's been on record saying those kind of things. He's uncomfortable with it. But the one thing Boston has as leverage is that Supermax. But whether or not you think whether or not he deserves it or not, if they want to keep him, that's what they have in the back pocket. Whether Brown takes it or not, that's a different story.
Well, I mean, nowadays, EJ, guys take short deals to sign long deals, sign short deals. It is what it is. But in a situation like Boston, because here's where the real problem is. Okay, if you extend Jaylen Brown and pay him an additional $15-16 million a year, we don't know what the next television contract looks like.
Yeah, that's
and without the new TV deal in place, we don't know how big the salary cap is going.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, we can talk about the NBA's new TV deal. I can mention that real quickly. Everybody and their mother wants in. This is where it's coming to. Warner Brothers Discovery is potentially getting out of the NBA, which is Warner Brothers Discovery is TNT. which potentially could be either downsizing their package or getting out of basketball in general, which leads to who would take over if TNT left. Well, All-Star Game will go to ESPN. Makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
But guess who gets back in, EJ?
NBC.
NBC jumps back in. NBC jumps in along with Amazon.
Universal.
Or Apple.
Right.
Yeah, NBC Universal will now have NBA games somehow on USA, which will have to work around wrestling, but I'm sure USA will figure this out.
They'll figure it out. I mean, first wrestling is Monday, Tuesday, and send NXT back to the network if you have to.
I mean, or send NXT, or listen, you put NXT back on Wednesdays, because ESPN normally has Wednesday night NBA anyway. Right. You put NXT back on Wednesday and have them compete with AEW, and we can have the Wednesday night wars instead of the Monday night wars.
Right.
Yeah. And then you put the NBA on Tuesday nights on USA. TNT keeps a small little package on Thursday. ESPN gets it. But EJ, we get the most important thing as NBA fans back. We get Sunday basketball on NBC and Peacock.
My 10-year-old me is like all happy again.
and I'll be honest with you, EJ, what they could do is, and this to me, this is, if I was running NBC, like if they gave me the power to run NBC for the basketball negotiations, here's what I would do. You're putting games on USA.
Yeah.
US is getting Tuesday night basketball doubleheader on cable, and then we're going to figure out who we're going to put in the booth. Whatever, we got that. I'm also going to have games on Peacock because you got to get people to Peacock.
Right.
But after NFL season, after the Super Bowl, I'm getting everybody in the NBA in America basketball night in America on Sunday nights.
Mm-hmm.
I got Maria Taylor right there. I brought Maria Taylor in from NBC, from ESPN, who did NBA anyway, who wanted to have the head chair. You give me Maria Taylor on a Sunday night at 7 o'clock with basketball night in America with a Sunday game at 7:30. And the only difference compared to ABC, which does this all the time, which agitates me, is I'm not showing the same 7 teams all season.
Right.
Because the NBA struggles, and why we don't have a new fans anymore, because we watch the same 7 teams.
Yeah.
No one really knows about Denver and Miami because we get stuck on Saturday nights watching Golden State.
Although this series, hopefully the series changes the perception, though.
Yeah, but the problem is we don't. But even when we had Milwaukee and we had Phoenix 2 years ago, the next season, Milwaukee and Phoenix were barely even on ABC on Saturday nights. But they were just in the finals. The only time I think they were on was that Saturday night they played against each other.
Right.
Most times you're watching Steph Curry, you're watching LeBron James, you're watching Brooklyn, or you're watching the New York Knicks. That's what they pretty much give you on Saturday nights. We don't get to see a diverse group of teams. Memphis, we want to watch Memphis until John Morant can get his life together, and hopefully he does. We can't put Memphis on TV. Even though people want to watch Memphis, we can't put them on TV. We can't put New Orleans on TV because everybody wants to watch Zion, but we don't know if this dude's even on the court.
Yeah.
So how many marketable teams we have because no one makes these players marketable. EJ, on a Saturday night, I promise you, if we had, I would say Minnesota Denver on a Saturday night. Us as basketball fans, Anthony Edwards and Nikola Jokic, sign me up on a Saturday night.
All day, of course, all day.
Because we all know AEW Collision ain't gonna give us what we're asking for anyway. So guess what?
Even CM Punk returning, it doesn't matter.
Listen, it can be CM Punk, it can be BC Punk, it can be I don't know, punk music. It is what it is. I'm pretty sure we're talking about
exactly. No, of course.
But the NBA is missing that part. I think with negotiations, Amazon or Apple are going to jump in this because one of those two is taking lead pass. We already know what's coming.
Let me say this though: the TV deal is going to be probably huge. I'm sure. Do you see a scenario where the salary cap goes to $200 million?
I think it comes close.
Right now we're about 158, 160 now.
I'm thinking we get closer to 180.
Okay.
And that's still for a league that has 15 players on the roster.
It's a lot.
The average player is making over $10 million a season.
But again, if you have 2 players making $60 million per, that's 120 covered up there, and then you got to fill another $60 million. Yes, there's still not a lot of room, but it's room.
And so that's why EJ, I think during the draft in a couple of weeks, I don't think we see as many teams trading out of those lower first round draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll start seeing teams trying to acquire more second round picks because now the extra two-way spot comes into play because there's now 3 two-way spots for each team now.
Mm-hmm.
I think teams will start valuing the G League more because once again, you're going to have to start developing players because they have the cheap salaries.
Oh, you mean something Miami has been doing for the last like 6-7 years now? Yeah, cool.
The same way the successful teams have been doing by developing the G League.
Yeah.
I think, like, for example, my Hornets, for example, have 3 second-round picks this year. I can't see the Hornets not using those 3 second-round picks. They're picking 33, 37, 41. For me, in that draft room, they also have 27 as well, too. We know this, they got the second overall pick, and know it should be Scoot Henderson. But my thing is the important picks are 27, 33, 37, and 41. Why? Because if you hit on those picks, don't got to be superstars. But if they can give me legitimate quality minutes and play good basketball, that allows me to, when LaMelo's contract is up, I can go pay LaMelo Ball the money he deserves. When Mark Williams' contract goes up and he plays well, I can pay him. I can bring back Miles Bridges, and I have a team that I can build around. Right. And that's where the NBA is coming to. These days, these super team days of us all playing together, it's a choice. Either we're going to have what Phoenix has, and we saw what happened in the playoffs. They have no depth anywhere else because they gave everything away. Or you're going to have teams building like Miami, teams building like Denver, and that's where we're going to go. That's where the league is headed to. The days of the super teams, EJ, is either you're going to do it and have nobody, or you're going to rebalance your rosters out. And be honest with you, it might look more like the late 80s, early 90s pretty soon than it is currently.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I kind of like that though.
I think so too. I think it's okay to have what they have with Joker and Murray. You got a $40 million player and a $30 million player surrounded by a bunch of $20 million players. That's really a good thing to have because you have quality at all the positions. But you mentioned before, if my salary cap is $175 million and I got 2 guys making $120, $125 million, how are we going to win? Especially about draft picks.
So the 3 names you mentioned Cat, you mentioned Trae Young, you mentioned Jaylen Brown. I actually totally agree with you. I've been saying Jaylen Brown is a guy that if he doesn't want to stay in Boston, he's highly coveted. I already said I'll take a Miami any day of the week, on Sunday. Him and Jimmy Butler together and put him Bam as a third option instead of the second option, that can propel them to be the best favorites in the Eastern Conference. What other names you out there you can see being on moving this summer?
I think Trae Young.
Wait, your audio went out. Your audio went out real quick. Yeah, your audio went out. I don't know what happened. There you were.
Can you hear me now?
No, you're good now. You're good now, yeah.
Okay. I think Trae Young in Atlanta is one. And here's the reason being, not because Trae Young is not talented. Atlanta's got DeJounte Murray, and they got to pay DeJounte Murray, and they paid 3 first-round draft picks to get DeJounte Murray.
Oh, yeah.
So at some point, is DeJounte Murray and Trae Young your answer in the backcourt? Is that the answer you're going to have going forward?
When your sample not good.
It was, but you got to give Quinn Snyder his chance. So I think maybe a Trae Young for Jaylen Brown swap could be an answer. Because Marcus Smart you can put Marcus Smart next to Trae Young because Marcus Smart can guard the guards, the better offensive players, and let Trae Young be Trae Young.
Right.
That could be one. I can see Zach LaVine getting traded sometime this offseason. There are teams that want Zach. I see Zach LaVine being somebody interested. I think DeMar DeRozan's another one. The big one everybody wants to see on the trade block is Damian Lillard. And I really would like to see if the Blazers can come off that 3rd overall pick to give Dame what he's asking for before Dame, I think, hits the detonation button.
I don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants. I think they want to trade him. I think they want to trade him.
I think the Blazers really kind of want a divorce here.
Yeah.
I think Dame is the one that wants to hold on because Dame is a super loyal guy, and to no fault of his own, EJ, we talk about this. We want players to be like Dame Lillard. We want players to go down with the ship.
Yeah.
But Dame is 32 going on 33.
Yeah.
We're into Kevin Garnett, Minnesota territory here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you want to win a championship, this is the guy you're going to have to move. You're going to have to go someplace else because
you may have about 3 or 4 prime years left.
I mean, and you got to think though. In Portland, he's really carrying that team. So how much longer does he actually have? It's 3, 4, 5 years on a situation where he's in a better situation. But imagine how that's taken when you're carrying an entire franchise.
Yeah. Yeah. Son of Miami. Son of Miami.
But does he? But EJ, you've been part of the culture. You've covered the Heat. You've been in Miami for umpteen years. Yeah. Is Dame Lillard really? Could Dame Lillard fit the Heat culture?
I think so too. I think his attitude alone would fit there. Absolutely. Him and Jimmy together. Oh my gosh. Yes. Of any star, of any top 15 star I see in terms of who can be loosened up to move from your team, that's the kid. That's the guy I'm looking at. Like, yeah, that could be that's a Heat culture guy there. Definitely, you can tell. But yeah, it's funny. Like you talk about, like the CBA. It's like this new CBA is. I mentioned Bob Myers, and him leaving the Warriors as general manager and president. I think it's getting ahead of the curve when it comes to the Warriors window. We didn't discuss this last time because at the time the Warriors were still in the playoffs. Next year is the all-in year for the Warriors at this point now. I think the last dance year is coming up. I think with Myers leaving 22 is the first crack in the armor. Now, look, Draymond can probably leave, opt out and leave this year, whatever. Maybe we'll see that happening. But I think the Warriors, I think Bob Myers got ahead of this thing a year early, or 2 years early, because I think he sees the chaos coming down here. We're in the Warriors now.
I think the chaos might happen this summer if Draymond Green opts out. If Green opts out and goes to the Lakers, and then I think here's the reason. I think Bob Myers, and I think you can never ever say as family men, EJ, because we're all family men. That we step away for our family because we want to spend more time with our family. We get it. But to me, this sounds like Bob Myers don't want the blood in his hands. He helped put this thing together. He don't want to take this thing apart. Nope. He doesn't want to be the guy that didn't pay Draymond Green or has to trade Klay Thompson or do both. He doesn't want to be the one that has to take apart Steph Curry's team. And you know what? I don't blame him. Okay. At this point, EJ, if Bob Myers were to go back into an NBA front office somewhere, do you know his big trunk is going to back up to the size of Monty Williams if he wants to go someplace else? So you always remember for what you have done in every sport is to what have you done for me lately. Bob Myers left Golden State with what 3, 4 championships, multiple finals appearances, a team that has been literally the same, basically in the championship running for over almost a decade. And the only year they weren't in the championship contention because Steph Curry got hurt and only played 5 games that year.
Yeah.
And then the second year, Klay Thompson was coming off an ACL injury, and Steph Curry could have won the MVP that year, but they just weren't that good.
Yeah.
So, and they had just lost Kevin Durant. So at the same time, Bob Myers is still the most sought after executive anywhere you're going to find. I mean,
he'll have carte blanche wherever he goes. He'll have carte blanche anywhere he goes.
Listen, there was a report today, EJ, that ESPN was after Bob Myers.
Yeah, I heard about that.
But I don't think it's for a television role.
What do you think?
I mean, listen, Bob Myers is a super smart guy. He's a super smart executive. He has ties and relationships everywhere. We just watched ESPN pull off an $85 million deal for Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
You don't think that Bob Myers knows people or who knows people who know people in this industry? Because, like I said, when you run the Golden State Warriors, you win championships. You come across many people. He's a leader. He's literally one of the best at what he does in all of sports, which is lead and being a super executive when it comes to sports. So why not take him to a sports leader to be the executive for sports? We've seen it done before. It doesn't sound logical, but when you think about it, the skill set's just about the same.
No, I agree. Why the hell would Houston